QCHBA, QCHBA, QCHBA.
So, big round of applause for Lucinda. I'm just going to speak to hear myself if I sound different with a microphone. No, it doesn't sound any different from here. So, one of my favourite things about the way we do therapy here at Quest is the way we treat clients as individuals. So if someone comes to us saying they want to lose 2 stone, we don't say, oh great, weight loss. Sit down, close your eyes and start reading them the weight loss script. No, we listen for how this particular client does their problem. We say, what's that about? But that doesn't mean that we don't use models. So if a client says their problem is that they don't want to go out 4 nights a week partying like their partner does, and we can see that they're an introvert, we might teach them about introversion, and so that they can stop thinking there's something wrong with them and start negotiating a few quiet nights in on the sofa instead. And today I want to share with you another model that I'm going to call Rainforest Minds. But first I want to ask you a question. So, has anybody here ever disagreed with another person that they're sharing a space with about the temperature? Like one of you wants the window open and the other one wants the heating on. So I remember in my first job as a trainee solicitor sitting there with like my thermals on underneath my suit while my boss was sitting there with the shirt sleeves rolled up and the window open in January. And I would look at him and think, what is wrong with you? It's freezing. And he probably thought the same about me, sitting there with my scarf bundled around me as I was getting on with my work. But of course, there was nothing wrong with either of us. Each of us was just experiencing the same temperature differently. I have to stop to breathe because of my asthma. So, it's human nature, isn't it? We all live our lives, even those of us who ought to know better because we know a little bit about how the brain works. We live our lives under this false assumption that I'm experiencing the same objective reality as you. But of course, reality, as Sue has pointed out, isn't out there. Every single element of our experience is a result of the way our individual brains are processing the information that comes from our unique senses, filtered through our rep systems and meta-programs and life experience. Now, for most of us, this false assumption that objective reality exists isn't much of a problem because there's not that much of a gap between the way they're experiencing the world and the way everyone else is. But for people at the edge of the bell curve, not supposed to be 20%, there's more of a problem. There's more of a gap between the way they're experiencing reality and the way other people are. Here, in this part where nature plays around to see whether there's any evolutionary benefit to making tweaks here and there. And for these people, they don't know that they're experiencing the world differently, but they know that they feel internally that they can easily become overwhelmed or carried away. And psychologists call this combination of sensitivity and reactivity overexcitability. And I don't mean that word in the everyday sense, I mean it in the sense of an excitable nervous system. And to avoid any confusion between those two senses of the word, I often shorten overexcitability to OE, and I will do for most of this talk. So, in a moment, I'm going to share the 5 types of overexcitability that psychologists have identified, and I'm sure that a lot of you will recognise them in yourselves, because at least 1 in 5 of us probably has a Rainforest Mind, and at least 1 in 5 of our clients too. And bear in mind when I'm going through the OEs that it's not a case of ticking off all the boxes, it's more a case of the depth and extent of the experience. And clients can have, if they're Rainforest Minds, can have just 1 OE or all 5 or a combination of them. So, I'll start with this lovely picture of Beyoncé, who has probably sensual OE. This is the one that most of us are probably familiar with. So people who have sensual OE are very sensitive and reactive to the information that comes in from our physical senses. So these are the people who hate the feeling of tags on our clothes, who are very sensitive to, hate the sound of people eating, who are very sensitive to noise, can't focus when the lights are too bright or too dim, who might hate the texture or taste of certain foods, be very sensitive to certain smells. And the thing about all of the OEs is that they come with challenges and also advantages. So to give you an example of someone with central OE, imagine a woman who has this OE, she's had a busy day at work, and she tries to go to the supermarket, it's a Friday night, it's really busy, and she just finds it all. She's so triggered by the noise and the hustle and bustle and the bright lights that she gives up, she just dumps her shopping and she has to get out of there. But that same woman, the next morning, might open her bedroom window and hear the birds singing and just feel on top of the world in a way that people who don't have this OE can. Or she might stand on a beach watching a beautiful sunset and hearing the sound of the waves lapping on the shore and feel intense joy. And thinking about clients who have this OE, people with this OE can use their great sensory awareness to soothe themselves, but it can be taken to extremes. So clients with overeating addictions, sometimes this self-soothing has just been taken to extremes. Next, we have psychomotor OE. And people with this OE have an abundance of energy. So they have great drive, enthusiasm, zest for life. They can be quite impulsive and competitive. When they're excited about something, they can speak quickly and loudly. Has anyone here been skydiving? Anyone get to the bottom and say, again? You might have psychomotor OE. So there are challenges with this OE too. People who have it can get a bit disconnected with their need for downtime, so they can get burnout. When they're stressed, they can be prone to things like nail biting, hair pulling, other sorts of physical tics. They might channel their energy into organising and tidying, and this can become compulsive and obsessive. And if you think about children who have this OE, they can use up so much of their mental and emotional energy trying to keep still in school that there's nothing left for learning. And of course, many of them are misdiagnosed with ADHD. Next, we have imaginational OE. So these are the people who have rich inner lives. They're creative daydreamers. They put together ideas in unusual ways. They have quirky senses of humour often. The line between truth and reality can sometimes get blurred, and they're prone to exaggeration. They love stories and making up stories. But of course, the challenge with having an amazing imagination is it's hard to switch it off. And they can conjure up bleak and scary scenarios. They can be very prone to worry, anxiety. And it can be hard to switch off your imagination when you're trying to relax and get to sleep, so they can experience insomnia, or when they are asleep, nightmares, and particularly children, night terrors. Next, we have intellectual OE. So these people are curious. They are deep thinkers. They have an insatiable thirst for knowledge. They love research and solving problems and puzzles. They also have a very strong sense of fairness and justice. So it's people with intellectual OE that are the whistleblowers of the world. And there are challenges with this OE, how did you guess? So they can come across as argumentative and critical because they just have this deep drive to understand, to know. They can't take, because I said so, for an answer. They just keep on questioning long after social convention says that they should probably stop. And their deep drive to have things exactly the way they want them can be mistaken for OCD and Asperger's. I think some of my more challenging clients have had intellectual OE. So next, last OE, but definitely not the least, emotional OE. So these people feel things deeply. They're sensitive, compassionate, empathetic. They form deep bonds with people and animals, places, even things. Thinking about the challenges associated with feeling this deeply, they can be really sidelined by upsetting world events like terrorist attacks and natural disasters. They can be idealistic, and when they realise that other people don't feel the same way as them, they can get quite disillusioned and depressed, especially when they're growing up. They can be very self-critical and suffer from imposter syndrome. And because they're so deeply attuned to the feelings of people around them, they can find it hard to relax unless everyone else is happy. And this can get them into the habit of prioritising other people's feelings over their own needs. And people with emotional OE also have a strong mind-body connection. So these are the people who have stress headaches, have IBS, and other psychosomatic illnesses. I suspect that there are more than a few people with emotional OE here in this room. So there you have the 5 OEs. As I said, people can have any combination of them. But what they all have in common is that life is experienced as deeper, more vivid, more complex, more richly textured. And because they experience life differently, they behave differently, and so other people behave differently towards them. So the phrases that these people hear most often when they're growing up are things like, "Why are you so intense? Stop being so sensitive. Stop daydreaming. Slow down. Calm down. Why are you such a drama queen?" And so it's no wonder, keep people on the phone. It's no wonder that they grow up thinking there's something wrong with them. And then when they do grow up and they start sharing their experiences with other people, they start getting the blank look. So I'll give you a few examples from my experience. Arriving at law school one morning when I was about 22, saying to my friends, "Did you see those glorious daffodils on the way in?" The blank look. Explaining my slightly complicated system of packing to go on holiday to some friends who are mums, how I have Excel spreadsheets depending on whether it's a summer holiday or a winter holiday, how old my children are, what kind of accommodation I'm staying in, and saying, "Doesn't everyone do that?" The blank look. And cringing slightly to share this one with you, but making small talk at the start of the party and blurting out when there's a gap in the conversation. So I always wonder, what do normal people do when there's a gap in the conversation like this? So, being intelligent, perceptive people, when Rainforest Minds get this feedback from other people, they decide there must be something wrong with them and they should change themselves. They should repress who they are to be more like everyone else. You can imagine the stress involved in repressing personality that intense. It's exhausting. And you combine that stress with the inherent challenges that each of the overexcitabilities brings, and you get clients coming to us with these sorts of issues. So, how can we help? If we sense that the client in front of us has a rainforest mind, what can we do? Well, of course, we can use all of the wonderful tools that we have in our Questy toolboxes, and these work really well with Rainforest Minds, especially if we're conscious of the strengths that their overexcitabilities bring. So if we have someone that comes to us with anxiety, and we can see that they have imagination OE, we can harness their creativity to help them to reach their solution state. But I think that there's something more that we can do. I discovered this model when I went looking for answers about what was going on with my son, who was 9 at the time. And we'd been around so many different professionals looking for answers about what was going on with Jasper. But none of them had given me a complete picture. They'd all focused on what was going wrong with him. He had a diagnosis of sensory processing disorder. And then finally I arrived at a workshop, a parenting workshop, where I discovered this model. And it didn't only answer all the questions I'd ever had about Jasper, but it answered questions I didn't even know I had about myself. And I can still remember spending most of the morning, my eyes brimming with tears, because for the first time I felt truly seen, understood, validated for who I really am. And that was so affecting for me. I started volunteering for the organisation that ran the workshop, and I created a website to share what I'd learned with other people. And since then I've connected with hundreds of people whose lives have been similarly transformed by finding out about this model, their sense of who they are and their place in the world. So my imposter syndrome doesn't want me to say this, but I'm hoping that by what I've shared today, I can help you to release these creative, sensitive, intelligent, deep thinkers from the burden of denying who they are, so that they can go out and use their extraordinary, intense energy to make the world a better place. Thank you.
QCHBA, QCHBA, QCHBA.